You're listening to Career Coaching with John, spinning thoughtful approaches to lasting change. My name is John Fialkowski, and welcome. Today's episode is called The Trap of Being the Best. Side note, I'm reminded of the hospitality world. So let's focus there. And today, we'll talk about the anti-hero of hospitality. We've heard of Gordon Ramsay, have you not? Well, this story isn't about him. It's about Yevgeny Prigozhin, the man who went from selling hot dogs in the streets of Leningrad to running a global mercenary army. Yes, really. Brace yourself for some inspired coaching. In 1990, fresh out of Soviet prison for violent robbery, Prigozhin started small, a food stand with his mother. Within a few years, he opened a high-end French restaurant in St. Petersburg, and then he opened another restaurant. And it just so happened that one of his regular customers was a rising politician, Vladimir Putin. Well, that relationship changed everything. They built a quiet friendship. And by the early 2000s, Prigozhin wasn't just a restaurant owner. He was in the room. He started catering state dinners. His company secured massive government contracts. Soon, he was known as Putin's chef, and he was getting very rich very fast. But he didn't stop there. He launched an internet troll farm that manipulated elections. He founded the Wagner Group, a private army that wreaked havoc in Africa, Syria, and eventually in Ukraine. And when Russia's war efforts in Ukraine started failing, he turned on them. He launched a coup. And then, of course, he was exiled to Belarus and then died later in a suspicious plane crash. Now, here's the real question. How does a restaurant guy with no military background end up running an army? Because he got the point. He understood how the game was played. He didn't just work hard, he leveraged relationships. He adapted, he took his shot. Sorry, I'm getting fired up. And while his path was dark, no doubt about it, there's something worth paying attention to here. Because too many of us spend our careers being the best and going nowhere. We get stuck following rules, waiting our turn, doing what's asked, all the while missing the real opportunities around us. So no, I'm not saying you should go start a mercenary group. But I am saying maybe it's time to stop being so damn good at playing a game that won't take you where you want to go. This is Career Coaching with John, Episode 4, The Trap of Being the Best, and Completely Missing the Point. My name is John Fialkowski. Stay with us. Welcome back to Career Coaching with John. So, what does any of this have to do with you? Well, here's the thing. Prigozhin saw his opportunity in the world. Twisted as his path may have been, he got what it was all for. He looked around, he saw what the system would reward, and he went for it. But most of us, we don't do that. Especially in customer service, where we're told, do a good job, and doing a good job means be the best, show up, smile, be helpful. And for a while, that feels like it's working. But more often than not, the best gets stuck. And you become the one who's always scheduled on the hardest shift. The one who gets handed the angry customers, the broken systems, the short-staffed days. You're the one training the new hires because you're so good with people. That was me. And everyone knows you'll get it done. So no one ever asks you if you want to do it anymore. And it is flattering at first. It feels like recognition, like trust. But over time, that praise turns into pressure, and eventually that pressure turns into a prison. Well, let me introduce you to my rules of customer service. Now, I've worked in service for a long time, And I've seen this play out over and over. The people who are smart, skilled, and generous get stuck. And the people who rise, well, often they're not the best, and sometimes they're not very good at it at all. They're just the best at understanding the game. So let me break it down for you with the 3 rules that I've developed over the years. These are the ones I've lived by, and they've helped me not just to survive in the industry, but to understand why some people move forward, some people leave it like me, and others stay exactly where they are. Rule number 1, shut up and do it. If there is something you can do, just do it. Don't make a scene, don't overthink it, don't ask for permission, just get it done. This is the first rule that everyone should learn in service. It's what makes you a rock star. It's that fast-moving barista who sees you come in and already has your coffee halfway done before you even get to the counter. It's the server who notices your drink is low or that the kitchen forgot your order and just fixes it without saying a word. No drama, no delay, no spotlight. You start doing this enough, you start seeing the problems before it happens. You get faster, smoother, and smarter. Here's the catch, though. This is the rule that gets you used. No one promotes you for this. They just lean on you. You become the duct tape of the operation, and nobody promotes the duct tape. Rule number 2. They are our rules, not their rules. Here is where you level up. This is the rule about knowing how to work with the system, but for the customer. This is the skill of navigating policies, knowing which ones to bend, which ones to quietly ignore, and how to do it all without getting written up. You're not just doing the job anymore, you're smoothing over the friction. You make it feel easy, seamless, like magic. This is the difference between a decent employee and a great one. Whenever you have an exceptional customer service experience in which the impossible magically became possible, this person understood rule number 2. But what do you get for being great at rule number 2? Well, usually you become the, quote, unofficial trainer, the one they call on to help new staff. Maybe you get promoted to supervisor, but more often you just end up doing more of the same, now with the added responsibility of everybody else. Rule number 3. The customer is king, but I'm the emperor. This is the rule that trips people up. Great service isn't about making everyone happy. It's about serving the business. It's about using judgment, about knowing when to say no and when to say yes, about protecting the system that makes the service possible in the first place. If rule number 1 is about hustle and rule number 2 is about finesse, rule number 3 is about power. Because yes, the customer might be king, but the business is the emperor. And the emperor's job is to keep the whole empire running efficiently, profitably, and sustainably. Here's the thing. If every little kingdom is running its own show, giving away the farm, constantly demanding more, without ever giving back, well, eventually, guys, the emperor gets pissed. And when the emperor gets pissed, everyone pays the price. And I don't really need to go further than looking at what's happening in the news right now. Look at what's happening in the U.S. Trump's back in the spotlight, and there's all this talk of tariffs. Again, let's punish the countries that aren't treating America fairly. And well, never mind that those countries are often longtime partners or allies. Never mind the complex web of global supply chains and economic dependencies, and they're working the system exactly as it was intended. The emperor feels disrespected. The emperor doesn't like the deal he's getting, so he retaliates. And who ends up footing the bill? Okay, we're getting off topic here, but uncertainty spreads. And all this is because the emperor felt the empire wasn't being properly served. Now, think about this in your own workplace. If you give and give and give to keep customers happy, but your business suffers, your policies aren't being bent to the breaking point, your profit margins disappear, and your time is being spent fixing problems instead of creating value, you're not being the hero. You're undermining the empire. And in many ways, you're undermining yourself. The best customer service agents understand this. They know how to say no. They know when to walk the line. They know how to protect the business and make people feel cared for. That's management potential. That's effective leadership. It is an incredibly hard skill to learn, and it is one that is rarely taught because it requires confidence, strategy, vision. But if you want to grow past the front line, you've got to stop thinking like a subject and start thinking like the emperor. Here's the dilemma. Most of the best people in customer service, they've mastered rule number 1. Some of them are really good at rule number 2, but almost no one gets rule number 3. And that's not because they're not smart. It's because they haven't got the right incentives. No one teaches them how to think like an emperor. Nobody tells them that service is strategy, that judgment matters more than charm, that people who grow are the ones that learn to say yes to the business, not just to the customer. And if you didn't figure that part out on your own, you end up getting stuck. Let me tell you about the most accurate review ever written about me. It was 2012. I was working the front desk of a hotel. One night, a man checked in, and the experience didn't go very well. I honestly don't remember the details, and it doesn't really matter. But he didn't seem to like me. I didn't seem to like him, and there was a serious mismatch or misalignment of priorities here. After he checked in, and things, we never heard from him again, he wrote a review on TripAdvisor later. And he wrote something to the effect of, hotel was nice, room was great, the check-in didn't go very well, the front desk agent was a bit aloof. Actually, he was a lot aloof. Now, when they showed me that review afterwards, I laughed out loud because this man nailed me. Aloof was the best that I could be at that point. Now, a little backstory on this hotel. I liked working there generally. I liked the staff. They were friendly. They were ambitious. They wanted something. The management, at least my direct supervisor, he was great. We got along really well. We had a great thing going on. And I was his number 2 guy. I really held things together. But at one point, he left suddenly. I think this was his own decision. I think he just kind of disappeared to the beach somewhere. And I thought to myself, well, I've been kind of running the show all this time anyway. I'm going to apply for this position. I found myself very, very annoyed when I was in the interview. First of all, the GM put me through some strange aptitude tests. She then grilled me on things that I would have no idea about, held me responsible for things that, well, I couldn't imagine I would ever have even known. But I was very proud of the work that I had done there thus far. I was very proud of all the things that we had contributed together. And I presented myself as, I know the system very, very well. I know it inside and out. I can keep this place running exactly to this level that we've been doing it and better. That's not what she wanted. She wanted change. There were big problems at our front desk. Big problems that they were protecting us from or keeping from us. And she wanted an entirely new way of running it. Now, if I had been paying attention to the business instead of what was right in front of me, I would have known that. And that's really what highlighted rule number 3 to me. Because I had heard rule number 3. That's not my creation. I heard it from a chef years and years and years ago. And I think he was kind of joking. But he was an experienced enough chef to know that at the end of the day, the thing that really matters is whether or not we get paid. Why the best gets stuck. A business owner cares about happy customers, sure. But their real concern is the bottom line. If your coffee tastes bad, it's a problem. If the business goes under, it's a catastrophe. Being great at rule number 1, that's your job. You don't get promoted for that. You get scheduled more. Be very clear. I've been a manager. I've been on the other side. This is true no matter what. Being great at rule number 2, you'll be training the newbies. You might get moved into a lead position. Might. But rule number 3, this is what separates the essential from the strategic. And that's the rule nobody teaches you. Because here's the truth. Managers aren't looking to grow you. They're looking to survive the week. Leaders grow people. Managers survive. They're watching the schedule, the labor costs, and the customer complaints. If you're reliable, if you make their life easier, they're going to hold on to you for dear life. They're not going to push you out of the nest. Because why would they? This isn't a malicious thing. They're not trying to hold you back. But sometimes it's inertia, sometimes it's fear, but either way, you get stuck. So unless you recognize it, it feels like a compliment. Remember, they're going to say stuff like, you're so good at this. We'd be lost without you. And that is true. Honestly, let's take a step back. If being that person speaks to you, and there are a lot of perks to being that person and for doing that job, go for it. Hospitality and customer service is important work and it's undervalued, and you are doing it well. I strongly believe that hospitality is a career worth having and that you should be proud of your contribution to the world. If it gives you purpose, do it. Love it. And don't listen to anybody who tells you otherwise. But maybe you don't want to be the one they can't live without. Maybe that doesn't sit well with you. Maybe you want to be the one that builds something for themselves. That's the shift right there. If you want to move forward, you have to stop being the workhorse and start being the strategist. You've got to stop thinking like an employee. You have to think like an entrepreneur. You have to ask, what do I want to learn? Where do I want to go? What am I building for myself? Because the manager isn't coming to save you. The business isn't going to magically see your potential. You have to make the move. You have to save yourself. Here's the gut punch. Excellence isn't enough. Being the best doesn't guarantee anything. You can be the sharpest, fastest, kindest, most capable person in the room and still be invisible. Still be underpaid, still be overlooked. Still be in the same spot year after year because excellence doesn't automatically create opportunities. Not in most companies, not in most systems, and definitely not in customer service. In fact, the better you are, the harder it gets to leave. Because now you are too valuable. Not in the way that gets you promoted, in the way that keeps you exactly where you are, because you've become a fixture, a utility, a Swiss Army knife everyone reaches for, but nobody will ever replace. You've stopped being a person with ambition. You've started being a solution to someone else's problems. It doesn't feel bad at first. When you're young and full of energy, it's awesome. It feels like belonging because it feels great to be needed. Until one day, you wake up, you're tired and your legs hurt and you're tired of working stupid shifts and you realize you're not moving. Because no one's ever asked you what you wanted, because you've never made it part of the conversation, because you've been waiting for someone to notice, and that's the moment the shift happens. That's when you stop asking, why hasn't someone helped me grow? And you start asking, why did I ever think they would? That's when you realize excellence isn't the ticket here. Ownership is. Owning your trajectory, owning your development, owning your worth, even if no one else sees it yet. Because if you don't claim it, they'll keep using it. It's not out of cruelty. People want you to succeed. They just don't see it that way. And the reason is because you let them. I say that with love. I've been there. I've been the one who said yes to everything. I've been the one who waited for recognition that never came. I've been the one who finally realized the only person that I was waiting on was me. A management dilemma. Now, to be fair, managers aren't always the problem. But the system isn't designed to reward you for being the best. Managers are under a tremendous amount of pressure. Good staff are hard to find, and you are held responsible for that. So when they find someone solid, they hold on tight. They hoard talent. There was an article I found while researching this in Harvard Business Review by a man named Kenneth Stokes. He wrote, "Over the many decades my company has been studying the link between people, practices, and performance, we've seen a common trait among low-performing, non-agile, slow-to-change companies called talent hoarding. This is the practice of allowing managers to keep their top performers from moving anywhere else in the company." So you see, this is a very common practice. And it's rare that you can find a company with a culture that prioritizes advancement, that prioritizes cross training, because it is easier to keep people exactly where they are and let them specialize. If we go back to the beginning and we ask ourselves, well, what does this have to do with Yevgeny Prigozhin? And what does this have to do with us? Well, I mean, for starters, he wasn't hoarded. He was unleashed. Now, you could say what you will about Vladimir Putin, and there is a lot to say, but he recognized that Prigozhin wasn't just a guy that could serve him champagne. He was somebody who could be useful in a far more dangerous, far more high-stakes situations. Now, who do you think put that idea in his head? I doubt he came up with it on his own. These are not the kind of problems that you can solve with spreadsheets and customer surveys. Prigozhin didn't stay running these French restaurants forever. Putin gave him a seat at the table, and eventually his own war. Now, I am dangerously close to calling Putin a great leader, and well, that is not the case, because there have been plenty of talented people in Putin's orbit. Most of them were ignored. Not to mention that our anti-hero ended up dead in this whole situation. And while that ended, the whole situation ended exactly as you would expect a restaurateur turned mobster turned mercenary arc to end, there's a lesson here. If the system won't evolve, you have to. If you're great at what you do and no one's giving you the space to grow, then maybe it's time to stop asking for that permission. It's not exactly easy to grasp that point. But you have to start somewhere, right? And similarly, you don't have to start a private military company, but maybe you might need to start thinking like somebody who could. Let's take a break. That was Sexy Soul Blues by Jean-Paul Verbeau. I will be releasing a Christmas album of generic non-copyright music on cassette tape to accompany my calendar of mid-century apartment building lobbies at night. Those who know me well already have that calendar prominently displayed in their living rooms, I'm sure. Anyway, you're listening to Career Coaching with John, and this is episode 4, The Trap of Being the Best and Completely Missing the Point. ChatGPT is an enabler. You guys know I write my scripts with it because otherwise I tend to censor myself. But this thing had me going on a happy little rant about the inspired leadership of Russian oligarchs. Well, privyet, friends, but like any tool, we have to use it carefully. We are still the boss. One of the downsides of career coaching is that you spend an awful lot of time on LinkedIn. And if you are in this field, you are profoundly in the I'm looking for a job, I'm looking to be inspired algorithm. Now, I don't really like the platform. I don't think it brings the best out of people. I think there's a lot of disingenuous inspiration for the sake of inspiration stuff out there. A lot of slogans that start to grate me after a while. But there was one that kind of stuck with me. I'll paraphrase. Confidence isn't a given. It's not natural. It's earned. Okay, well, that kind of resonated. 6-year-olds have tons of confidence. So, life kind of beats that out of them, right? I don't think that society generally, society praises people who are exceptional and unique in a way that's sort of, envious. But it doesn't exactly teach that. As a kid, you're told not to talk to strangers. As an adult, you need to talk to strangers. As a teenager, you're told to sit down and shut up. Well, I know why they do that. But does that really give them the confidence they need to be successful later in life? As a 20-year-old, you come into the workforce thinking you know absolutely everything. And yeah, we all know you know nothing. But all the adults seem to say, our kids these days aren't willing to do the hard work. Well, how long has that one been going on for? Are you really teaching them how to succeed, or are you teaching them how to serve you? And well, now you're the grown-up, and you've watched certain people move ahead, and you watch everybody else stay where they are or fall behind. And the difference between those two groups of people is confidence. And confidence, as it turns out, isn't natural. It comes from the accumulation of accomplishments, whether that's education, or whether or not that's tangible things or promotions or successes that you've had on your own. We have to take chances. Some of us are lucky enough to get the good mentorship, but for the rest of us, it's something that we do have to build on our own. And that is the real work here. It's showing up when nobody's cheering for you yet, when nobody's sure what you're capable of, including you. And if you're in that place and you're stuck and you're questioning what's next or just tired of figuring it out all alone, this is where I come in. I am a career coach, and I help people navigate this stuff. I've made it my personal mission to empower people to get out of their shelves and get what they deserve by doing something worth doing. It's real conversations that can make a difference. And that's like this show. Start as a place just to talk about my business, just to get more traffic to my website, but it's taking on a mind of its own slowly. This is a place that we can talk about the weirdness and the mess and the meanings of modern work. Anyway, this has been Career Coaching with John, episode 4, The Trap of Being the Best and Completely Missing the Point. Be sure to subscribe and share these episodes with the people that need to hear them. And hey, if this episode spoke to you, please let me know. Leave a comment, share your story, or tell me what you're wrestling with. You can find me at johnfialkowski.com or on Instagram at Career Coaching with John. I'm also looking for interview folks for future episodes, so if you have a story worth sharing, please reach out. The world needs to hear from you. Thank you for listening to Career Coaching with John. My name is John Fialkowski. Take care. I'll catch you next time.